Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. In today's episode of Friday Morning Ramblings, I want to talk about soil, explain to you what it actually is, give you some information so that you can have a better garden, spend less money. Also want to talk about not really lies or fake information, more kind of partial information. What do I mean by that? People might say if you use a chemical fertilizer, you're going to kill out all the life in your garden. That's not true. If you use a GMO, that's really bad. Well, how do you use a GMO in a garden? Genetically modified organism. I'll talk about that in a second. So inside my cold frame, well, when you come up here, you can see here's the soil where I've pulled back my mulch layer. You can see different colors, browns, oranges, and stuff like that. When we're talking about garden soil, we're really talking about top 6 inches, 8 inches of your soil. Taking a look in there, I've dug down about maybe 18 inches, and you can see this orange layer. Doesn't look like anything what I'm growing in. That's your subsoil. So you have your topsoil, layer 1, subsoil, middle soil, and then you have bedrock. Generally speaking, you can break this down into horizons, which are more specific layers, but you're basically just looking at topsoil, subsoil, and bedrock. Not much would grow straight into that mix of clay and silt and stuff like that. That's okay. Plant roots will go into that. They will pull minerals out of there. They'll be perfectly fine. In the top 6 inches, 8 inches, 12 inches sometimes, that's where you're putting in all of your organic matter. Your organic matter was living material that's breaking down and it's giving back to your plants. It's giving back nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, magnesium, calcium, micronutrients. It's giving back the elements your plants need to grow. Now over here you can see I have wood chips, what I use for my mulch, and this is all actually alfalfa pellets, which you can use as a fertilizer. Now when I did this video, I'll link it. It's a great way to save a ton of money. You can get 50 pounds of alfalfa pellets for about $15, $20 if you want to spend the extra for organic. Now, it is true, this is what I was talking about, it is true that a lot of alfalfa is a genetically modified organism. The cold frame just slammed. It is true that alfalfa is a genetically modified organism, which means it was engineered. It wasn't a cross, it's not a hybrid, it can't naturally occur. Is that people had to engineer it in a way that it can be grown, and that's typically grown so that it can be sprayed with basically Roundup to kill weeds, but the alfalfa doesn't die off, and then the alfalfa grows bigger and better in the farms. Now, that's fine. If you don't like genetically modified organisms because of the principle, that's a perfectly fine personal choice. Don't use GMOs in your garden and buy the organic alfalfa. However, don't listen to people saying that this was genetically modified and it's bad or poisonous for your garden. This is just organic matter. Whether it's, nature-grown alfalfa, genetically modified alfalfa, once you put it into the soil like this, it rots, it breaks down, it gives back to your plants. It will not harm your garden. It will not harm you, will not harm your plants. Just want to be clear. If you don't like GMOs for the principle, that's fine. Don't use it for that reason. But don't let a little bit of fake information sway your opinion. So this year I'm going to really be talking about using the internet, reading books, and collecting the information so that you can decide how to have the best garden for yourself. So mixed in here is compost, alfalfa pellets, wood chips. This is all the organic matter, and that's usually on the top. Like you have topsoil. On the top of the topsoil you have organic matter. Then you have the area where the organic matter blends with mineral rock. I'll talk about that in a second. And right in between that is where the worms and the microbiology and soil life live. So they kind of just spin away around in that topsoil layer. Minerals, basically the area where it's sand, silt, clay, they're just tiny rock particles that have been weathered over thousands of years and millions of years, and they turn into either sand. Sand's not great to grow in because it's too porous and everything just washes through that. It doesn't hold water. Clay is the smallest particle. That's not great to grow in because if you ever got a mound of clay and you squeezed it, it holds its form. It doesn't let water drain through. There's not a lot of air in there. Your soil needs the ability to drain, hold water. It also has to be porous enough to hold oxygen. Your plant needs all of that too. Silt is the right size between sand and clay. That's what you want. Combination of all three. But those layers, you have the topsoil, subsoil, and bedrock. You don't have to worry about bedrock. Most of us won't hit that. Well, that's not true. I think out west you hit bedrock pretty quickly. Then you've got the subsoil, which root systems will grow into, and that's mostly just clay and just the area where it's more rock particles than soil life. And then you have the topsoil, where you have the organic matter and everything you put down. So when you're gardening, to really save yourself money, really think about that top 6 or 12 inches. That's where the life lives. That's where the majority of your surface roots of your plants grow. They collect the water, they collect the food. That's where you put your fertilizers. That's how you have a great garden. So you can have raised beds just like this, where I like to use them because it concentrates the organic matter, the good stuff I want to put down, all into a specific space. Now in here, if you've watched some of my videos, I put wood ash down there for potassium, grass, leaves, threw in some alfalfa. This is all going to break down over the next 5 months and feed that topsoil layer, the top layer, with organic matter. It's pretty straightforward. Did the same thing over here. This is a taller raised bed. That's a good 12 inches. Leaves, alfalfa, compost, and then we can just walk down and you can see the same pattern repeated over and over again, that I'm just dropping down organic matter in different ways. It could be the alfalfa pellets, leaves that aren't fully decayed. You know, I've showed you plenty of times. That's where I'm doing all my composting. I'll have completed compost to go down in the fall, in the spring. When you're feeding your garden beds, you're setting them up, it's a good idea to put them to sleep. I've talked about that. Put down whatever you have. Just put down some leaves, throw things on top, keep the leaves from blowing away. You can put down your fresh cut grass, just as the winter begins to approach, or, as the grass stops growing. Let this sit 4 or 5 months. You're going to feed your top layer, the topsoil layer. You're going to add organic matter. This is, pretty much free if you do it that way. And I do really want to save you money. Now, just like, here's the bag, because after I do a video, sometimes I leave everything laying around. That's the bag of the alfalfa pellets. Again, if you want to buy organic alfalfa pellets, you can get that for about $20 for 50 pounds. If you want to buy the GMO version, or you're not worried about the GMO version, better said, you can get it for $15. Sprinkle it through your garden, perfectly safe. Now the other thing that they say, and maybe you were thinking this when I said it, is a lot of the GMO crops, I guess, like alfalfa, are designed so that they are resistant to the Roundup type sprays, so that they can spray the ground, kill out weeds, but the alfalfa comes up and grows and it's bigger and it's a better yield. You may or may not agree with that. But what people will say is, well, this was sprayed with Roundup, or this was sprayed with the chemical name of Roundup, which I forget, glyphosate maybe? I'm not sure. That's tainted now. If you put this in here, you're going to be putting herbicides and weed killers and everything in your garden. That's the other thing. Yes, it's possible that there's some residue of an herbicide on here, or a pesticide on here, or it absorbed a fraction of something, but it's not enough to worry about. Why is that? So let's just say this is a blank field. The alfalfa pellets or seeds are put down. They start growing. When would you spray? And look this up. This is the kind of reading I do. You don't spray the alfalfa when it's tall, ready to be harvested that week. You spray when it's starting to come out of the ground to kill out everything, so that as it's growing, it does really well. So that herbicide isn't being sprayed every week up until harvest, soaking that alfalfa, so that when you get it, you have this toxic soaked pellets that are going to kill out your garden. So yes, it's true, herbicides are used around it. There might be trace amounts of it in there, but it's not going to harm your garden. If you don't want any kind of chance of herbicide, I appreciate that and understand it. Don't use it, but I want you to be informed. I don't want you not to be using this because you think it's just soaked with, deadly stuff. May have trace amounts in there. It's just like when I was talking about the pressure treated wood. Yes, it does leach, but it doesn't get into your system for reasons I explained in other videos. And just real quick, the bottom line is that the chromium, the copper that may come out of here, arsenic is not used in this anymore, doesn't go that far. It's an extremely low amount that probably wouldn't harm you anyway. If the concentration was high enough in copper and chromium to harm you, it would kill off your plants before you eat it. Your plants don't absorb this into its system because copper and chromium cling to those clay particles I was talking about like crazy. So the clay particles don't give that up to the plants. And on and on and on. So yes, leaching can happen in pressure-treated wood. No, in my opinion, can it get to any high concentration level in the plants that if you eat it, it's going to harm you. For that reason, that if they were high, it would kill the plant, so you wouldn't get to it anyway. And two, your body does have trace amounts of copper and chromium in it, and it can clear that out too, so your body uses it. But I don't want you to really take necessarily my word for it. What I want you to do is, especially if you're new to gardening and you're coming, I guess the other thing that sort of bothers me is if you're new to gardening or you're just getting started, you see all these labels, you can read all this stuff on the internet, and again, you don't have to take my word for it. I just want to encourage you to read and challenge things that you hear. We all come from different places, of course, but we all live in different places. Our gardens are different spaces. Last year was an extremely difficult year. Happy New Year, by the way. Many people lost their jobs. Many people are struggling for food. And for me to say, go spend maximum dollars only on organic fertilizers, I think would be wrong. Yes, organic products, compost the best, of course, is best for your garden. But if you have to buy that box of Miracle Grow or that box of chemical fertilizer, that can feed this whole garden from where I just showed you there all the way over to here for an entire year, and it costs maybe $6. Maybe you need that right now. I don't want you to be fearful that if you're using that chemical water-soluble fertilizer that you're poisoning anything. You're not. Yes, if you used chemical fertilizers over and over and over and over again for years, or in the level of mass-scale farming, you would damage the soil. But you can use them to grow food that is healthy and safe, and that may be based on your budget, based on your preference. As things change, where maybe you have more money, or you're able to make more compost, or you get to a bigger space, change it up. But don't feel like gardening must be 100% organic. I'm not 100% organic. 90% organic, maybe more, even more so now that I have all this compost coming in. But I will use the chemical type fertilizers where I feel fit. I might use a chemical insecticide where I see fit. I'm not going to use it on my leafy greens or anything like that, but I might use it on my pumpkin plants. Doesn't make me a bad person. It doesn't make me not organic. It just means, hey, I use this specific product in a targeted way. I want you to feel that freedom, because the whole goal is to grow healthy, safe food. And you can do that if you make yourself knowledgeable and you use things in a targeted and specific way. Now, I do want to encourage you, maybe for 2021, at least build a pen like this and just throw in all your organic matter that you collect from the garden. We'll walk out to the other side too. I'll show you the leaves. Maybe build a second one like that. If you don't have room, I always say, well, maybe family or friends, you could, build a compost area in their yards, or you can garden there and share, everything that you grow. Well, so I did start rambling a little bit. I want to just get back to soil real quick. So your soil is really made up of organic matter. That's what we're putting on top. Organic matter will feed the garden. It's going to hold water and moisture. That's really, really, really important. And it's going to feed the soil life. And then beneath that, you have your mineral layer, which is basically the rock particles, sand, silt, or clay. If you have really sandy soil, it's going to drain too fast and it's not going to hold water. So you have to add in more and more organic matter to help it out. If you have clay soil, you're not going to have enough oxygen in there because the particles are too small. It's going to hold water. So you have to break that up. And the way you break that up is with organic matter also. Silt's the perfect size mineral particle because it allows for air to get in there, water to flow through and drain, but not so fast that you run out of water. So it's really a combination of organic matter and rock particles or mineral particles. And just FYI, this is coming from mountains, large stones that really break down through weathering, cold, rain, ice, and chemically. Sometimes your rocks will oxidize. It's kind of like rust, and it kind of gives the clay the red color. So everything breaks down into these small particles. But no need to get lost in the details. You want to concentrate on the topsoil and adding organic matter. The hardest thing sometimes for composting is we get lost in the details of that too, and we think we have to be perfect. There's the wooded area. Leaves fall, they rot, they break down. Worms eat them up, soil biology eats them up, the plants live. You can just follow the pattern in nature and you don't have to overthink it. But you get a bin like this going, the stuff on the bottom can be dug out. It'll be great for my garden next year. If you want, you can set up something like that. I've showed you videos on that. I've taken everything out of there. It's all piled under there, decaying, breaking down. And maybe we'll end here. When you talk about topsoil, in the top couple inches of your garden, you want it to look like this. A mixture of decayed and broken down matter, your compost. Soil biology's in there, worms get in there. Underneath that are the minerals from the weathered rock. Life cycle just moves through that. Surface roots grow through here. This gives back to your plants. Your garden does well, and you've got a great topsoil, 6-12 inches of your garden. Hope this gives you something to think about. If you have a chance for 2021, set up a bin like this, start throwing in leaves, grass clippings. Before you know it, you'll have plenty of compost. Thanks so much for watching, and please take what I tell you as a point of view, basic information, do some research, and decide what's best for you and your garden. Thanks for watching.